coming up on today's episode.
In the modern day, the demands on those joints and muscles, etc., is so big. It's a West Ham ban, an absolutely ridiculous result for both teams, if I'm totally honest. Incidentally, I think it's too good for that team. We won't talk about that too much because he's been fairly consistent for the season. It doesn't need to be digged out too much. Yes guys, welcome back to TIFC YouTube channel. I'm Coach Indy. You're watching another episode of the Premier League Appetiser show. On today's episode, the Premier League is back, so we're talking about all things game week 30, all the interesting results. Now there was one or two shocks in there as well, some surprises, lots and lots of goals. We're running through all those. One or two other news bits to talk about, lots of injury news to talk about, guys, which I really want to get into a bit more detail a bit further down the line. Also going to talk about Indy versus the rest of the world, that is back as well. And also be previewing game week 31. So first thing we're going to talk about is Eric Bailly of Manchester United and Willy Boly of Wolves both have tested positive for COVID-19. Now obviously we know about Premier League, ask players to get tested. I think it's once a week, it was twice a week earlier in the season, now it's just once a week. Now you've got to bear in mind as well, it's just been an international break, so there is possibility that the people have caught things from sort of the international camps and then brought it back to their club camps as well, etc. So both those missed out. Hopefully they'll be available for Wolves' case, probably the next league game. In terms of Manchester United, probably the next league game. They've got a Europa League game in midweek, so I don't think Bailly will be available for that. But certainly, probably the weekend when they have, I think they play Spurs. So that's sort of the other news to talk about. Loads and loads of injury news, and I just want to talk about that quite a bit actually, guys. So first of all, it's going to reel off lots of injuries that have sort of happened over the last week or so, whether it's happened international duty or on the back of the weekend's fixture, etc. So Declan Rice, knee injury, he's going to be out for a month to 6 weeks. Rashford, he's sort of, I think it's a recurrence of his ankle injury possibly. He has to go off against Brighton at the weekend. Tierney came off injured for Arsenal against Liverpool. He got to play 3 games for Scotland and was a mainstay in that team as well, so maybe the physical demands have sort of caught up with him a little bit. Also with Arsenal, Saka and Smith Rowe both missed out as well. Not sure what the injuries were, but both of them injured. Antonio did his hamstring for West Ham over the weekend. Eric Peters got injured during the game for Burnley away to Southampton. One of the centre-halves at West Brom, O'Shea, got injured. Ivanovic come on, then Ivanovic got injured, he had to go off. Christian Pulisic also got injured in that game as well, so there was quite a few injuries in that early kick-off on the Saturday. On top of that, Martial picked up an injury for France, he's done a knee injury, he could be out for the rest of the season potentially. And then Johnny, the Wolves sort of left wing back, he has done his ACL again. Now we don't know if it's the same ACL that he's just come back from sort of the last 2-3 months. If you remember rightly, he was out for about 8 months for another ACL injury, so we don't know if it's sort of maybe a recurrence of where it was from before, or if it's a different knee altogether. So just as a sort of general rule of thumb there, guys, there's a lot of injuries. There's a lot of injuries that have happened on the back of international break, where obviously a lot of players have played a lot of minutes for their nation. The physical demands on the modern day footballer is huge. Like, no player can play for 11 months straight and play 50 odd games at a very, very high level and not become injured. I mean, I say no player, there's very few that can do that, especially in the modern game. But if you're a winger or a striker where you're relying on a lot of pace or a lot of explosiveness and a lot of power, lots of twists and turns, etc. In the modern day, the demands on those joints and muscles, etc. is so big. So the recovery time from game to game is obviously decreasing if you've got lots of games. And obviously the physical demands in terms of the output they put in the games in terms of kilometres, etc. and high intensity runs. Again, it's massive, it's only going up and it's sort of increasing year on year, it seems like. So the recovery, the time's not getting any bigger, especially given the pandemic this time around as well. The time's decreased, if anything. So I think this is one of the reasons possibly why there is so many injuries going away from international break, getting to the end of the season where people's bodies are sort of wearing and tearing a little bit and they can't handle the vigours of the Premier League. But yeah, that's my thoughts on it. I just think the demands, the physical demands on the modern day player, especially in those wide areas, attacking wide areas, and those sort of strikers, in particular if you're an explosive, quick, powerful player that requires a lot of directional movement, twists and turns, they're going to play a big part, not only on your muscles but also your joints as well. So a lot of injuries there. I mean, just pick out one for example, Mikel Antonio. He's a very explosive striker. He likes to threaten that space in behind. He's really, really explosive. So he is very, very susceptible to picking up lots of hamstring injuries, and that's been proven as well. Like, he's had so many over the past probably 2 years where he's been out for 3 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever it may be. He misses chunks of the season. He's going to miss another bit of the season as well. But yeah, that's my take on sort of the demands of the Premier League, and not just the Premier League, but obviously domestically and international as well. Actually, going to move on to Indy versus the rest of the world next. Now, today's guest is an old friend. His name is JLingz. He is a West Ham fan. We reached out to him and he was happy to sort of get involved. Dive straight to the results, guys, because we want to whiz through these and talk about game week 30. So, Chelsea versus West Brom. I've gone for a 3-0 win to Chelsea. He's gone 2-0, 5-2 to West Brom. Couldn't be more wrong. Leeds versus Sheffield United. Both went for 3-1 wins to Leeds. Finished 2-1 to Leeds. So we both picked up 2 points off the mark. Both went for a narrow wins for Manchester City. I went 3-2 against Leicester. He went 2-1 against Leicester and finished 2-0 to Manchester City. So, both picked up 2 points there again. Arsenal versus Liverpool. Now, I went for a narrow Liverpool win 2-1. He went for a narrow Arsenal win 2-1 and finished 3-0 to Liverpool. So I picked up 2, he's picked up 0. Southampton versus Burnley. Both went for draws. I've gone for 1-1. He's gone for 0-0 and it finished 3-2 to Southampton. It's a bit of a goal fest in that game, actually. Quite surprising. Newcastle versus Spurs. Both went for Spurs wins. He went 2-0, I went 2-1. They finished 2-2, so we don't pick up any points at all. That was disappointing. Villa versus Fulham. Both went for Villa wins. I went 3-2, he went 2-1. Actually finished 3-1 to Villa, so we both picked up 2 points again. We keep moving. Man United versus Brighton. I've gone for a 2-1 win to Man United. He's gone 3-0 to United. I picked up 5, he's picked up 2, which I'm really, really pleased about. 5 points, he's picked up 2. Everton versus Palace. We both went for 1-0, narrow wins for Everton. Finished 1-1, so we didn't pick up any points there. And then last but not least, the West Ham game. Wolves versus West Ham. I've gone for 2-1 to West Ham. He's gone for a 1-1 draw, and it finished 3-2 to West Ham. So I picked up 2 and he's picked up 0. So scores on the doors for the week are as follows. I picked up 15, which is probably one of my highest scores for a good 4, 6, 8 weeks. And Young's, who's obviously representing the rest of the world, has picked up 8 points, which is okay. It's not brilliant, but that actually means for the cumulative scores for the season, I've now moved ahead again, which I'm pleased about. Remember rightly, the last sort of 3-4 weeks I've been behind. Getting this sort of 7-point advantage this week has put me in the lead again. So I'm on 241 and the rest of the world are on 235. So there's a 6-point advantage for myself going into this final stretch now. I have said for a number of weeks throughout the season that the lead doesn't really matter either way really. There's loads of weeks sort of. So for one or the opposition to regain and sort of claw that deficit back, if you like. Obviously now we're into the final stretch with this sort of 7-8 games left of the season, so game weeks left of the season. Those points now, the leads are actually more crucial, so really pleased I've got a 6-point advantage going into game week 31. So going to move on to game week 30 results now and just talk about some of those. There's obviously some talking points to talk about. We'll just talk about the first game that's kicked off sort of the weekend. Chelsea 2, West Brom 5. I mean, that is an absolutely ridiculous result for both teams, if I'm totally honest. Going back to our predictions, mine and Young's, we both went for a Chelsea clean sheet and to win, by 2 or 3 goals. And West Brom, I mean, the red card for Thiago Silva played a part, obviously. But having said that, there was some horrendous defending from Chelsea and some good attacking play from West Brom. You can't deny that they played well. Goals for Chelsea, Pulisic and Mason Mount, and then West Brom, Diangana scored, Robson got a brace, and Pereira, who incidentally I think is too good for that team, he also scored a brace as well. So good win for West Brom, disappointing for Chelsea, obviously fighting for them European positions, in particular the top 4, and it gives West Brom a more of a slither of a hope, if you like. I still don't think they're going to get out of it, but it just gives them a bit more of a fighting chance and it raises the spirits even higher. Leeds versus Sheffield United finished 2-1 to Leeds. I think Jagielka, the goal for Leeds as an own goal, was a crucial goal, if you like. Harrison had scored for Leeds, and then I think Osborne had scored for Sheffield United. Leicester versus Man City, Benjamin Mendy, an unusual scorer for Man City. He's sort of opened the deadlock. And then also Jesus scoring to make another win for Man City, another clean sheet for Man City, and their momentum just continues, and fantastic to them. Arsenal versus Liverpool, finished 3-0 to Liverpool. Jota scoring a brace, Jota doing what he does. He actually started on the bench in this game, comes off the bench and scores a brace, plays really, really well, injects a lot of pace into the team, and also Salah scoring as well. So that's given Liverpool a really, really good chance of finishing in the top 4 in the league this season, and dents Arsenal's chances of any European football this season. They have to go on to, I think they did have some sort of a chance, but an outside chance of European positions in terms of the league and getting to Europe next season. But I do think now, because of the amount of teams that are ahead of them and the amount of points that are ahead of them and the games they've got remaining, I think they're now just going to concentrate on Europa League and hope they can qualify for the Champions League in that way around. So disappointing for Arsenal, but Liverpool, fair play to them. Moving on to the Sunday, Southampton versus Burnley, 3-2 to Southampton. Shock in terms of the quantity of goals, not in terms of who won the game. What I will say is Burnley were 2-0 up within half an hour. I think Chris Wood and Vidra scored, but Southampton turned it around. There was a Desmond at half time. Ings and Armstrong scored, and then Redmond scores in the second half and nicks a win for them, and that eases the pressure off Ralph Hasenhüttl and Southampton for a period of time anyway. Newcastle versus Spurs finished 2-2. This was a Desmond game. Harry Kane doing what Harry Kane does, doing Harry Kane things, scoring a brace, and then Joe Willock scoring a late equaliser for Newcastle after Linton had put them 1-0 up in the first half. So decent point for Newcastle. And definitely a blow for Spurs, given the fact that Leicester had lost, Chelsea had lost as well, so it gave them a good chance for them to sort of gain some points on those teams above them. However, they weren't able to do that, so disappointing for Spurs and a decent point for Newcastle. Villa versus Fulham, finished 3-1 to Aston Villa. Fulham actually won 1-0 up through Mitrovic, continued his good form from what he produced on international duty. I think he scored 5 and 3 after Tyrone Mings' error. We won't talk about that too much because he's been fairly consistent for them this season. He doesn't need to be digged out too much. It was actually the substitution that made the difference for Aston Villa. Trezeguet and young Keenan Davis coming on, not actually scoring Keenan Davis, but playing a part in one of the goals, getting an assist I think for goal for Trezeguet's second goal. Trezeguet scored a brace, and then Ollie Watkins scored as well. So it keeps Villa in them, it keeps them a bit of hope to potentially get into Europe this season. Now they're I think only 3-4 points behind European positions, and they have got a game in hand. So if they can win that game in hand, then they're right in the mix massively. So, and you could argue they've got their, or not argue, this fact, they've got their best player to come back yet. So that's obviously going to give them even more momentum going into the final stages of the season. And then the last game on Sunday was Man United 2, Brighton 1. Bit of a scare for United, going 1-0 down after Danny Welbeck scoring on the second attempt to put them 1-0 up. But good character from United. Rashford scoring a very composed and assured finish into the far corner. And then Mason Greenwood showing he is a striker. He's got the instinct and the movement inside the box to recognise where the ball could be and being really proactive in his movement in terms of second phases off, whether it be a pass or a strike prior to that. There's a decent header. I think that's his first header for United as well. So good win for United. They didn't play well at all, but the character side of things was really, really pleasing. And any type of win after an international break is really, really important. On top of that, obviously going into the international break, they lost the FA Cup quarter-final to Leicester as well. So good to sort of get back to winning ways, if you like. Moving on to Monday night, Everton versus Palace finished 1-1. Now it looked like Everton were going to win the game through James Rodriguez's goal and put them right in the mix for European positions. If they did win that game, I think they would have been 4 points outside the Champions League spots with their game in hand. So they would have been right in amongst it. However, they drew 1-1. Batshuayi scored quite late on. And they have still got a game in hand, so they've still got a chance to qualify for certainly the Europa League, possibly even the Champions League as well. So it's really, really tight in those positions. And no doubt there's going to be chops and changes in terms of league positions between all them types of teams. Teams are playing in Europe, etc. And some teams who've just got a sort of clear schedule, if you like. And then moving on to the last game, which was a really, really good game actually. Wolves 2, West Ham 3 on the Monday night. West Ham racing to another 3-0 lead. However, managing to hold on and secure the victory this time around, comparing to sort of last week when they were 3-0 up against Arsenal and drew 3-3. JLingz continuing his form, brilliant form at the moment. If he continues like this, I have no doubt he'll go away with England. But he has to continue the form. He can't just sort of, he's got 8 games left. He can't just score, 1 or 2 goals in that period. Now he has to go and score 4 goals and 3 assists in that period and continue that form. So he scored. He had 4 nails. He scored a really good finish. Actually, that's a difficult technique to open up your foot and to punch it into the far corner like that. Very, very difficult technique to do. But fair play to it, was really, really well taken. After good work from Lingz and from Masuaku as well. And then third goal after Antonio got injured and Bowen come on. Bowen scored after a good play from JLingz again, who got another assist. And then it's a good finish from Bowen, but Patricia should be saving that from Tony, honest. I think he's one of the weaker goalkeepers in the Premier League, and he makes a lot of those types of errors where he can't get down quick enough, and I think he overcovers his far post a little bit. We won't talk about that too much. But obviously it was a bit of a comeback from Wolves. Traoré setting up, then Donk got a really good header, and then the young striker Fabio Silva also scored as well to make it 2-3. West Ham held on and moving to 4th position in the league, and I won't say it's theirs to lose because they've got some difficult fixtures, but they're in pole position if you like, because they're in 4th position. Just going to look ahead to game week 31 fixtures now. Again, it's a Friday night game. Fulham versus Wolves. Wolves are not in the best form at the moment. Fulham equally aren't either. They normally sort of draw a lot of games, but they've actually lost quite a few of the last sort of 5 games, maybe 3/4 games, possibly in the last 5, which is unlike Fulham. They normally lose a game, draw, lose a couple, then win maybe. For them to sort of lose 4 of the last 5 is quite disappointing. So for them to get their momentum back on track, they need to win this game. And also, I think if they do win this game, they go ahead of Newcastle in the league, ahead of their game. Looking at it, Newcastle don't play until Sunday, so they can put some pressure on them, put some doubt. Newcastle will be thinking about it going into the game in the relegation zone. There's a day and a half to sort of ponder, if you like, them thoughts in your head. So important game for Fulham, I think. We won't talk about all the games, but Man City versus Leeds will be an absolutely terrific game. You remember the reverse of this fixture earlier in the season. It was just end-to-end basketball match, and really surprising it finished only 1-1. Now Man City got to play a Champions League game in between, so there will be a lot of rotation and there will be a relatively new team in terms of freshness going into this Leeds game, but Leeds are going to be completely fresh, obviously not playing any games midweek, so this is going to be a really, really good game. Actually looking forward to this game. I'm looking forward to predicting my score in this game as well, actually, which obviously I won't talk about now. Liverpool versus Aston Villa. The rest of this game was the 7-2 win for Aston Villa, so maybe a little bit of revenge possibly for Liverpool going into this game. Will Grealish be back? Probably, but we don't know just yet. One other thing is what to say as well, Liverpool have got a Champions League game against Real in midweek as well, so that also might play a part in terms of freshness in their team. Moving on to some of the Sunday games, we've got West Ham versus Leicester. Again, another crucial game. Technically, that will be, well, it is 4th versus 3rd now. It might not be when you get to the game. And if Leicester go and lose that game, then obviously that means West Ham win the game. That means West Ham will only be 1 point behind Leicester in 3rd. So that is a massive incentive for West Ham to go and win the game and put even more pressure upon Leicester City. They probably looked at it and thought, yeah, they're not too much pressure in terms of teams chasing them down, but if results sort of go against them this weekend, then maybe they're looking over their shoulder a bit more. And then also Spurs versus Man United, a massive game for both teams. Spurs obviously not in Europe anymore, so they can have a fresh week, good week to sort of work on their training ground, get some good work done, as Mourinho likes to call it. United obviously have got their Europa League tie to sort of navigate through in terms of hopefully not picking up any injuries, and everyone sort of being unscathed going into that game. And then a couple of games on the Monday night as well, which we've got West Brom versus Southampton. Again, can they go and put back-to-back wins together and put a bit more pressure on the teams above them? Obviously at this stage here, most of the sort of rivals would have played already, so the points for them to get sort of safe might have increased. But it's a nice fixture. I think they could do quite well in this game, potentially. And then you've also got Brighton versus Everton, which I think in terms of, I really like watching Brighton this season. I've said this on numerous occasions. They really do play well, but maybe their naivety at the back could play into, and their expansiveness and openness could play into Everton's hands with the likes of Richarlison, Hammers and DCL possibly exploiting spaces in and around the midfield area and even beyond that as well. So that's sort of like the fixtures sort of look ahead to, guys. Obviously I won't run through everything there, but some interesting games coming up, and we'll obviously digest some of those when we get to them next week. Guys, that actually concludes another episode of the Premier League Appetiser show. Please hit that subscribe button, it does obviously help the channel grow. If you click that notification bell as well, every time there's a video put onto our YouTube channel, you will get notified, and then obviously you can see our content. Also drop a like as well, guys, because the more likes there is on the videos, it does help with sort of the YouTube algorithm. It helps sort of reach more people in terms of on their feeds and YouTube, etc. So please do drop a like. Yeah, and we'll see everyone next week.